themselves, and they will also share what language they were able to acquire. Good evening, board members and community members. Really excited to be back with an update about the Pathways program. Unfortunately, Ben Cornell, one of our bilingual teachers, is not here today, but he's been part of the project since the brainstorming stage in 2019. I'm Sylvia Gorski Duarte, the family resource teacher for the district.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcelo Yunda, and one of the bilingual teachers here at ITEA, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
Buenas noches, me llamo Jailani, me gradué de la escuela ATIA, estoy estudiando inglés y español.
Hola, buenas noches, mi nombre es Abril Javier y yo me gradué de la escuela ATIA Middle School. Yo estoy estudiando español e inglés.
Ороймонд намайг Индра гэдэг. Би Springman сургуулийн 8 дугаар ангийг төгссөн. Би Монголоос 2 жилийн өмнө нүүж ирээд яг одоогоор англи хэлийг сурж байгаа.
Buenas noches, me llamo Natalie, me gradué de la escuela ATIA. Estoy estudiando inglés y español.
Ороймонд намайг Чогдонгийн Урангоо гэдэг. Би Springman дунд сургуулиас энэ жил төгссөн. Би англи, франч, монгол хэлээр суралцж байна.
Bonsoir, je m'appelle Kate Anar Tufchintoga. Je suis diplômée de l'école Springman. J'étudie l'anglais et le français. Ороймонд намайг Төвшинтулгын Kate Anar гэдэг. Би Springman дунд сургуулиас төгссөн. Би англи, франц, монгол хэл сурч байна.
Bonsoir, je m'appelle Leah Constantopoulos. Je suis diplômée de l'école Springman. J'étudie l'anglais et le français.
So we wanted to circle back to why we started the Pathways program at District 34. It's important to recognize that the state has an official seal of biliteracy at the high school level that students can achieve in one or more languages. And it's an official award that goes on their transcript and diploma and carries many benefits in their future. At District 34, we created a Pathways program, and this year 92 students graduated and achieved this award that shows that they're on track to earn the seal when they continue in high school. As you can see, this is our timeline for this school year. We started in the springtime informing families. You guys, back about a year ago, we recruited families and informed them about not only the high school version, but also what our school district is starting. Students committed in November and started working on their community service, working towards their language achievements, and working on their projects all the way through the spring. Some students took additional language assessments, and then in April and May, we were finally able to confirm which students achieved the award. At the awards assembly for 8th grade and at graduation, students wore their medals and cords, as you can see our students are wearing today. And we did send those who achieved their information onto the high school so they know that these students are already on the pathway to achieve that award. We look forward to continuing this program into the next school year. In these 3 columns, you'll see the 3 different components of this award. The English requirements can be met through grades, through MAP testing, through access scores, and some students did take a stamp test in English. The world language component could be achieved also through grades, in addition to having a proficiency level of a novice high. Some other students took an Apprenda test, which is to get into the Heritage program at GBS. Other students took stamp test, and we did create our own Mongolian test and interview because it's a low frequency language, but high frequency in our community, so we accommodated that big, large community in District 34. You'll hear more about it later this evening. The commitment part, which is distinct and different from the state seal at our level, required 4 hours of community service using that language or supporting the culture. In addition, students also prepared an essay or a different type of projects. We'll see an example later this evening.
We had a great students' participation this year in both schools, ITEA and Springman. At ITEA, 55 students participated in the program. and 46 of them met the requirements for the award. It's important to mention also that we had 16 students from the Heritage program and 31 students from the global language classes. At the Springman, we had 48 students participation, and ironically, 46 students also met the requirements for the award. And also we have 17 students from the Heritage program, and 31, again, ironically, the same number from the Global Language Program too. So this is like for being the first year of implementing this program, we are really excited and happy and really looking forward for the following years.
Why should 8th graders participate in Pathways? The first reason is that you could show off your language skills and grow your language superpower. It was really cool at graduation to wear a medal and a tassel to kind of show off that we know 2 languages. Not only that, but it helps build community. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that it was a lot of fun to go to the events and hang out with our friends, but also teach other students of our district, especially the little kids, the culture of our language.
Third, this gets you ready for the official state seal of biliteracy in high school. Plus, you'll earn a cord and a medal to wear at graduation, or 2 cords like Orangu and I.
We had many different options for the projects that we did. I chose to write an essay, which was a great learning experience for me, and it was pretty fun. And then a lot of my friends made posters or different art projects, and this video was made by Ava, a student at ATIA.
Hay muchas culturas muy diferentes que hablan español. Por ejemplo, España y México. Estos 2 países están en diferentes partes del mundo, con diferentes comidas y tienen tradiciones muy diferentes. Pero tienen una cosa en común: español. Lanju tiene muchos eventos para hispanohablantes y todos son bienvenidos. Con el español yo tengo una conexión en nuestra comunidad, Glenview. También puedo ganar muchos más amigos. Después del último grado, voy a intentar estudiar y aprender el español y espero obtener el sello de reciprocidad en el fin de la escuela secundaria. Español es un puente que puedo usar para conectarme con 500 millones de hispanohablantes.
Community service. Pathways to Biliteracy required us to do community service. I did all my hours at church. I had to help at events, clean up, and things like that.
Latin American and Hispanic Heritage Night was about a bunch of students in ATIA that made a display of Day of the Dead for the Hispanic Heritage Talent Show.
For the multilingual night at Lion, as you can see, I'm in that photo. But while we were there, we operated a booth, and we did different art projects, like arts and crafts, with the little kids that were there, and we taught them about different countries and the languages that we spoke.
For French Week, I volunteered at Springman Middle School and stayed after school to make pins, and during lunch, I passed out raffles with my good friend Lucy Tipton.
For my community service, I volunteered at a Gator Game Night and taught students for a Mongolian traditional game called Shaga.
My friends and I volunteered at the multilingual family game night at Springman. In all, it was so much fun helping families, especially the little kids, and seeing the smiles on their faces. And it was so wholesome teaching them and being able to use our superpower to bond with them.
And now, looking to the future, as I said, we are really excited about the growth of this program. It's so amazing seeing our students, the engagement of them during the different activities we have implemented this year. So for the school year 2025-26, the idea is to boost the participation of our eighth grade Spanish heritage students. So they actually are getting ready to take these advanced Spanish classes in high school. Also, we are planning to expand our volunteer opportunities so they have more choices compared to what we have this year. We had a great selection of choices this year, but we are always trying to create more opportunities for them. And also, we are planning to streamline the program through a planning and making this process, I would say, more effective, more engaging for them. And now the following year also, for the 26-27, our plan is to expand our language offering, at least choosing 2 of the 10 top languages that we have now. So again, we are really, really excited and looking forward to see our program growing.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Merci.
Baisa.
A huge thank you to our teachers, guidance, principals, school board members, and especially our families for always supporting us. You helped us grow into students who are proud to be multilingual and multicultural, and we're just getting started. Thank you.
Très bien. I took French in high school. That was as good as it gets. No, I'm very proud of you guys. It's awesome. I can't wait till you get your seal of biliteracy in high school. We can't wait to hear about that. That'll be fantastic. Does anybody have any questions?
I just invite you all to come back in 4 years and show off.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could sell that to 225, I think.
Should.
All right. Thank you very much.
We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
Can
Before you all go, we're going to do a quick group photo.
Yeah.
Come right back over.
quick reminder to our board members, there's a little button in the center of your mic. So when you can either leave it on or we can treat, like in the Senate, they push it when they want to talk or whatever. Either way, that'll need to be green if you want to be heard. Thank you. Well, I think they should.
Sure.
Anyone?
Squeeze it for me.
I mean, this is our first class, so I think we should, don't you? Doctor, what do you think? Yeah.
Just short. Tall in characters, that's what I said. Perfect. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Good job. Thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Raquel, for.
It's nice to move around, too. All right, next we have our audience comments section. And we got to wait for Becca.
She's right there.
Where? Oh, there she is. Thought she was walking out. Do we have any comments, Becca?
We do not have it.
Okay. I thought you switched. Yeah.
Not handle change well.
Whew. Okay.
I think Scott needs a summary.
I do. There we go. Next, we have our consideration of resolutions, our consent agenda. We have the 23039 personnel report, the 25040 payroll warrants, the 25041 vendor warrants, the 25042 fiscal year 2026 tentative budget and call for public hearing. We have the 25043 prevailing rate of wage resolution, the 25044 authorization to advance payment of warrants, and the 25045 annual certification of hazardous conditions. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll move it, so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Kemalevich.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Pritzker.
Aye.
Supos.
Aye.
Gilio.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we move along to our consideration of other resolutions, the 25046 administrator and exempt staff compensation. Mr. Dorkin?
This set of information is consistent with last year, and we just recommend that the board approve as listed. This tracks along with the increases that are in the certified staff contract.
Are any questions or comments? If not, could I get a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved, Moon.
Is there a second?
Second. Pritzker.
Yes. That's good. Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Moon.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Pritzker.
Aye.
Supos.
Aye.
Gilio.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Kemalevich.
Motion carries. Next, we have the 25047 press issue 118.
Thank you. So there is, you wouldn't know this, but we took one of these policies off to do a little bit more work with. Other than that, I think the only change that is probably worth noting that's not really functional, it's more in its placement, is one that, I don't know, Kevin, you might want to just speak to it for a moment.
So Title IX is reverting to the 2020 form, which in essence is just a narrower definition for some of the relevant categories, and it changes the way complaints would get processed, and there are connections to other policies we have. So, for example, pending a certain kind of complaint, it would go through Title IX only instead of being accessible to a complainant through the uniform grievance procedure that's a different policy. That might have been clear as mud the way I explained that, but it's essentially reverting to 2020, narrowing some of the definitions and processes.
It's how it's positioned within the policies, if you think about it that way. Otherwise, you know, these are recommended policies through the Illinois School Boards Association as per usual.
A lot of footnote updates.
There are.
All right. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved, Pritzker.
Second. Dolan.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Dolan.
Aye.
Pritzker.
Aye.
Supos.
Aye.
Gilio.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Kemalevich. Moon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our discussion section. We're going to be changing the order, and we are going to be asking for our Mongolian community update to be our first discussion item.
Yes, thank you. And we are very proud of our ongoing relationship with our Mongolian community here at District 34, and we thought it was important for the board and for the community to hear about an update on this important partnership that we value so much. Raquel?
Thank you. Tonight, we do have BPAC leaders from the Mongolian BPAC, our staff, current students, and former students, who will share with you how we've actively supported the academic and linguistic development of Glenview's fastest-growing multilingual student group. And they'll introduce themselves to you.
Good evening. My name is Zaya Gentimore. I am a Mongolian community coordinator.
Hi, my name is Nara Bansrakh. I'm a bilingual teacher and a current parent at District 34.
Hi, my name is Yulia Jundangasuri. I'm a current parent and I'm a president of the Mongolian BPAC at the District 34.
Hi, my name is Sayan Atombatir. I am the new leader of Mongolian Club, and I just graduated 7th grade from Springman.
Hello, my name is Sunga Patpair, and I'm going into 8th grade. I am the current leader as well as next year's leader of Springman's Mongolian Club.
Hello, my name is Indra. I'm the initiator and one of the current leaders of Mongolian Club at Springman. I just graduated my 8th grade in Springman, and I'm going to be a freshman at GBS.
So today we will discuss the progress, growth, and accomplishment of the Mongolian community in Glenview, all made possible through District 34 support and contributions. The Mongolian community is evidently expanding, as reflected in the data. More than 160 families speak Mongolian at home, ranking it as the second most spoken language, English and Spanish. We would like a highlight of journey from where we started, the growth, and where we are now.
So as I remember back in 2012, the population of Mongolian students was less than 10. As the Mongolian population increased, the translating, interpreting services increased as well. Our shared timeline includes when the population increased, the need for parents' involvement became necessary. The establishing a Mongolian BPAC group became a vital part of our parents. Families held a variety of different kinds of workshops, events, meetings, and virtual learning sessions throughout this time and COVID. Also hiring not only Mongolian native-speaking associates, but also a Mongolian community coordinator, as well as a certified Mongolian teacher. Supporting the Mongolian population was not limited to hiring the native-speaking staff and teachers. We are the population that is thrilled to share that District 34 supported and helped to implement the after-school Mongolian classes. This event has taken our community to the next level of achievement and has attracted so many parents and students to decide to move into our district schools. Most of our parents feel proud and fortunate to live in a District 34 school area.
Mongolian families are proud to contribute to celebrations and cultural events throughout the D34 and the community through our music, dance, and much more. The participation of our Mongolian students and families has grown exponentially in the last years because of the inclusive environment that builds pride and connections to their heritage.
When my kids started school, I faced many challenges due to the difference in the school systems. I made a decision to become more involved as a parent in order to better understand how the American education system works. Through this experience, I came to recognize the importance of the parents' involvement. I took on the role of Mongolian BPAC president to support our community many of whom has a language barrier that make it difficult to navigate district programs and advocate for their children. Also, I would like to express my gratitude for the inclusive learning opportunities provided to our Mongolian communities. Mongolian students.
Here are some examples of events and programs we've created with the BPAC, from Glenview Public Library visits for students and families to parent programs about writing at home and more.
We observed a high need in mental health in our community, especially during COVID. District 34 partnered with Family Service Center to provide culturally aware support that can navigate both American and Mongolian heritage experiences. Our work goes beyond District 34 by creating connections. Other organizations like Family Service Center, Glenview Public Library, Youth Services, and other districts in the area.
Creating a community takes effort from all stakeholders. To support our teachers and staff in better understanding our Mongolian students and families, we have provided professional development opportunities for them to learn more about this unique cultural group. This has a lasting impact on creating belonging and inclusion. Another example of creating belonging and inclusion is supporting students' voices and choice. The Mongolian Club is a great example of it.
Our Mongolian Club fosters an inclusive community in Springman by bringing together Mongolian immigrants and those interested in Mongolian culture. Our mission is to share Mongolia's rich heritage, support newcomers, and promote cultural exchange through events, activities, and educational programs. We aim to build a diverse, welcoming, and locally connected community.
I would like to share how the idea for the Mongolian Club began. 2 years ago, I moved from Mongolia to the United States without knowing English. It was a hard experience. I felt really lonely and isolated. With support from other Mongolian students, I slowly adjusted, but later, I met newcomers facing the same struggles. And while I helped them, I knew it wasn't enough. Learning about the biliteracy program made me realize how important it is to keep our language and culture alive. That inspired me and my partners to start the Mongolian Club at Springman to support new immigrants and create a space where Mongolian American students can speak their mother language. I also want to add that this is just one of our goals. Many foreign students didn't know much about Mongolia when I arrived, so our club also aims to share knowledge about Mongolia with others. Our club has made a lot of impact. We share and teach Mongolian culture, which breaks stereotypes. We support newcomers so they can feel welcomed and understood. We connect people and build friendship. We show how pride in your culture can bring a community together. And this is just the beginning. We are planning to develop and bring more large-scale benefits, not only to students, but also to the school.
District 34 is known for their extensive support and services. It even reached Mongolian Consulate of Chicago and who came to the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Showcase to honor District 34, its contributions to the Mongolian community. District 34 is an example for other districts to follow.
So looking ahead, we hope that outstanding accomplishments at District 34 reach within the Mongolian Ministry of Education across the ocean. Additionally, we hope that the generation we are nurturing here will return to Glenview, giving back to this community where language, culture, and community thrive in harmony and raising the next generation of future leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome. It's amazing how fast you've grown this. It's fantastic. Thank you. Anybody have anything to add?
so excited to meet you all at GBS someday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
I can't believe that one girl moved here 2 years ago. Like her English, I guess that's when you're young, right? Yeah.
Easy.
She seems like a rock star.
Oh, there's Becca. Becca, do we have any audience comments? I know, I just was.
He's just.
Thank you. All right, next we have our K-8 math teaching and learning update. Dr. Silverman.
Yes, thank you. Good luck following that, by the way.
Both of them.
I hope you use your superpowers.
We have math superpowers.
Okay.
Okay, let me just fire up the presentation. So I want to first introduce my amazing colleague, Jenny Bergeron. Jenny and I are going to share with you tonight. I also want to absolutely recognize our entire teaching staff because we have done some major lifting in the area of math education, and especially this year with K-5, similar to some of the other programs we heard about tonight. A year ago, we were sharing about our new math resource, and we spent this year implementing it, and the teachers have been absolutely amazing, and it's been just a tremendous amount of work. So thank you to all of our teachers and our staff. So with that, we're going to jump in here. Oh, thank you. All right. Swing back and forth. All right, excellent. So our mission statement, I think, is super powerful, but I'm actually a huge fan, a bigger fan of our vision statement. And I think it fits nicely as a reminder with all of our curriculum work and curricular programming, but our vision is where we're headed. And I always want to believe that our teaching and learning is in a state of continuous improvement. And we're always trying to maximize the potential of our teaching capacity and our children. And so a reminder that we have this vision statement. It's powerful. I love it, and it just fits with what we do. And speaking of what we do, we have new goals because of our strategic plan that we're going to talk about next. But these are actually aligned to our new strategic goal objectives. In this case, we're looking at creativity and innovation. And then you can see the particular objectives that we're going to be striving for in our mathematical programming and sharing with you tonight.
All right, so what you see here is from 2023 until projecting next year, kind of where we've been in K-8 with math. So in 23-24, that was when 6-8 was implementing a new resource. That was the Big Ideas resource. And so during that school year, their focus was their training for the program and implementation support throughout the year. So they received professional development and a lot of support from me. Then this school year, 24-25, we had some very intense sessions in all the K-5, with all the K-5 teams at each school that focused on the Go Math, which is the resource we adopted in K-5, Go Math, the learning model. And we did this kind of in two parts. You can see the first part, we called session 1, was focused on the instruction, kind of just the learning the newness of the approach within the Go Math program. And then our second session, which was in the spring, our first one was in the fall, our second was kind of in the late winter or early spring, was on rotations in math class. And that is something that we'll talk a little bit more about throughout this presentation. And that is something that was something that some of the teachers had been experimenting with a little bit on their own before this, before we adopted this resource. But it is something that's really embedded within this resource, and there's a lot of resources provided to the teachers. But as we experimented with and explored and learned about this year, there's so much involved with it that the implementation process is certainly longer than one school year. So the support for the teachers will continue throughout next year, and we spent this year spending a lot of time with them and hearing what their needs were and what they wanted support in, and we're hoping to really tailor the direction we go and the support we continue to give to where they kind of feel that need for support. So we'll share more about that with you as well. And then, yeah, that was everything, right? Okay. So what you see up here now is the Go Math learning model, the structure framework that is embedded in the program. And it's called the 5E model, which it is a framework outside of Go Math too, but it's the one that they've adopted. And it basically starts with a quick engage, as you can see up there, which is your quick hook into the lesson. And then the explore and the explain sections are the direct instruction provided by the teacher and the guided practice that with the teacher and students working together. And then you've got this elaborate section, and this is where kind of that that newness really was kind of our focus this year. This is where those rotations come into play. So we really spent a lot of time working in that elaborate section, which I'll show a little video to you in a moment to kind of explain what the ideal looks like when it's kind of functioning smoothly and as desired. And then math class ends with some kind of way to evaluate how students learned for the day. Usually that's with an exit ticket or some kind of quick check formatively. And then independent practice, which could be homework or could be done in the class. All right, so here in a moment, Matt will show this little animation that gives an overview of what math class may look like with these rotations. And with the various student makeups and differing needs found in every classroom, my caveat here is this is kind of what the ideal is, and just know that there's the whole spectrum of everything what you might see. But this is kind of what we strive for, I guess. And when we are working with the teachers on what should rotations look like, feel like, sound like, what should they be like. So there we go. Let's play it.
Small instruction and rotations in math class. Math class starts with the teacher leading students through an engaging question or activity in whole class format. The teacher then guides the students through learning as they explore how to solve new problems. Students participate individually and also engage in peer conversations, allowing the teacher to hear all voices as she navigates through the group. After these conversations, she has a good idea about who might need a little bit more direct instruction, who might be ready for a challenge, and everyone in between. The students display a broad range of content understanding and varying degrees of readiness to move on. Because each student may need something different than the person they are sitting next to, this is when small group rotations can begin. The teacher can pull a small group of students who need more support with the lesson to her table for some more direct instruction and guidance with written practice. The rest of the students are grouped with like-minded peers to work on activities together or independently. The highest achievers will come together and work through the practice problems and applications. Another group might be assigned to work on digital learning aligned to the curriculum in either Waggle or IXL, and the last group might be working on sharpening their math fluency. They'll stay in these groups for 5 to 10 minutes and then rotate on to another task. The group that was with the teacher will move on to written practice in their workbooks, and the students that were working on fluency will now take the spots at the teacher's table to get support while they work on their math problems. The students that were working on independent practice will move on to an enrichment activity, and the group that was doing digital practice will move on to independent practice in their math journals. The groups may stay like this for another 5 to 10 minutes, and then they'll change their tasks. Once or twice again before the class ends, the teacher can tailor the work done with each group to meet their level, and the groups can also work on tasks at their level as they work on their mapping the learning target to date. This data lets the teacher know how well students understood the lesson and can be helpful as the teacher prepares for the next math lesson. Here are some benefits to running small group rotations in math. Teachers can correct errors as they emerge. Teachers can watch every student solve their problems and step in to intervene and correct misconceptions before they have a chance to build up. It also allows students to do many different things during math class. When they're not part of a teacher group receiving direct instruction or support, they can work on their fluency, practice current or prerequisite content in IXL, learning Waggle, or any other independent activity, including math games. These tasks can be differentiated so students work at their readiness and achievement level. Finally, the greatest benefit observed in classrooms that run small groups of math is increased student engagement. When each minute of math class is tailored to the readiness level and needs of each student, the result is that the highest achievers won't get bored and the strugglers won't easily disengage. The result is that nearly 100% of the students are engaged 100% of the time. With rotations, when structure meets purpose, every student has the chance to thrive.
So that gives kind of an idea of what rotations ideally would look like in the classroom, but knowing that, there's various needs in every classroom, so things could look very different than what that is, but that's kind of typically what we aim to see and to support. So what you see on the screen here right now is some data that we collected this year. And this data shows the Waggle and IXL usage of students in grades K through 5. Waggle is the digital component from GoMath, and IXL is a supplemental program that also aligns to the math content that students are doing. And you can see the data looks kind of similar for both of them, and that was interesting to Matt and I when we pulled it and looked at it, and we kind of discussed a little bit why that might look the same. But let me talk about it to explain what you see here. The top two rows are averages, and the bottom row is a year-to-date total. It may be helpful to know that some grade levels, such as 5th grade, may have heavier digital practice usage than other grade levels, such as kindergarten. Another thing to note is that IXL's year-to-date total down at the bottom is only tallying skills where students achieved a SMART score of 80 or above, which is the requirement set by most teachers to earn credit for it. And the date range for IXL is only from January through May. So that's why those might look a little bit different. But what this shows us is that teachers are finding the two digital programs that we have to support math to be equally useful, but they are kind of different purposes. They have, and as we asked teachers about the two of them, and maybe I should back up and say we started the year with only having Waggle for teachers, and midway through the year we brought in IXL for the teachers because they've had it in the past, and they did miss it. And they shared with us that there was just a different purpose for IXL. And we can see that when we take a look at the usage data that the teachers are using both of them kind of equally, and they do have different purposes there. Should I go into the different purposes?
Maybe a minute on each.
Yeah, okay. So Waggle is, has a little bit more embedded instruction digitally, and the ways that teachers may use Waggle in class is for either pre-teaching or reteaching, not in place of the teacher. So I'll make that very clear. Nobody would expect Waggle to teach the lesson for them, but it could be helpful for students who maybe would preview a lesson or for a recap of the lesson. It is, as the students kind of get these guided lessons, it's interactive with them. So the students have to respond to questions throughout kind of also getting information and acquiring knowledge. Whereas IXL is more rote practice. And IXL is more like question upon question upon question, increases their fluency and their, not necessarily recall, but just that they already know an algorithm or they already know a skill, and it's practice, practice, practice. Waggle is less questions but more depth, and IXL is maybe more more in quantity for the purpose of repetition and committing to your, a different part of your brain. So like lock that skill in. So they do have different purposes. Teachers find them to be both valuable, and we would rarely see, as Matt and I circulated throughout the schools, we would rarely see students doing both IXL and Waggle on the same day. A lot of times teachers would give the choice or kind of dictate, today's Waggle, today's IXL, but they did find a use for both of them to enhance what they were doing in their classroom.
So to quasi-quantify a little bit of the impact and to definitely point out that historically, when you implement a new curricular resource or there's a change in the instructional model, there can be a detriment or a downgrade to student achievement. And this is our kindergarten, first, second grade Ameswood data. We benchmark 3 times a year. As you can see, a fall, winter, and spring. And sorry, it's a little bit condensed there, but it's a little bit easier to see all in one. And in the fall, we'll do the extensive Amesweb data dive for you, as we usually do. But we wanted to give a little bit of a preview. So this is the fall of this past school year, and then the spring. We strive for about 80% or so of our children in, we'll call it Tier 1. It's the lowest at-risk factor for them to achieve either their current or future goals, in this case in mathematics. And then about, maybe 10 to 15% in Tier 2, and then a small amount is possible in terms of children needing Tier 3, in this case for math intervention. And so the reassuring factor here is that with the changes in the instructional model, the new curricular resource, and the factors about the rigor built in and the shift in expectations for our children, and hence why we came to you last spring to move our math programming and achievement forward. I'm very pleased that we had these results, and again, in the spirit of our vision statement, this is just a start, and it's a huge learning curve for our staff and our children, and so we anticipate these will grow even more. But you could see even at second grade, that is a very powerful achievement aggregate, and it is typical. Again, we typically have pretty strong achievement. It didn't dive or falter with this new instructional model, so I wanted to point that out. To jump over to NWA MAP, and we've had some conversations in past meetings about the change in the test. So 2 years ago, NWA changed their algorithm, and basically they approach the differentiation or the adaptability of the test, where it used to basically be endless to the entire scale of the test. So if a child kept answering correctly, they're going to keep moving through the RIT score, RIT range, all the way potentially into high school. And so you would have children with these really strong RIT ranges up. The new algorithm tightens that range, basically give or take 2 grade levels above and 2 grade levels below. We responded, our children responded to that shift very favorably, which is great. We should celebrate that. I caution this data, especially as NWA is also renorming their entire math and reading assessments this summer. So we're going to have new norms in the fall, and that could shift all of this around again. It's wonderful as we try to make sense out of all of it. Up and down, left or right, sideways, forwards, backwards. This represents the number of children meeting their growth targets. So each child, as you know, at the beginning of the year, falls into sort of a cohort group, and there's a RIT, they're expected to grow a certain number of RIT points, and if they do from fall to spring, they sort of qualify as meeting their growth target. And so you can see 89% of our third graders, 84 and 74. This is strong. Historically, sort of the general benchmark is about a 50% marker. We have been above that, but these are strong scores. They were strong last year. Again, something changed. The curriculum changed. The curriculum resource changed. Instructional methodology changed, but this remained static. This was good. If this tanked, some of it would be with the implementation, but again, kids are rising, teachers are teaching, and here's a result of that. any questions on that? It's just a whole big map thing going on. Every time I talk to you about it, I feel bad. No superpowers here. My brain is mush.
I'm just trying to, I mean, we like to use this data to show our students' growth. And because they're in the process of doing all these changes, we're losing some ability to actually grasp this growth. Are they charging the same amount of money?
Yes, yeah. And
That should be some of our feedback here. Like, this is 2 or 3 years of data here that I don't want to call it. I mean, it's showing that we're doing great work, but, we like to look at it over time. We're talking about growth here, and I'm just struggling with it, personally.
Maybe said another way, the distribution is not normal for us to be able to look and use that in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And that's not you. We understand that. I'm asking you to push back on them. They're making too many changes too quickly to allow this data to actually help us decide, especially because we also change our curriculum stuff too.
Yeah, and it's, we've been giving NWA for 10, 12, 15 years.
20.
20. So this is just something for all of us to think about. Something you sometimes need to, may potentially change, I don't know, but.
Was this a planned multi-year changeover, or is it a changeover that has become a multi-year process?
From the new algorithm?
Yeah.
I think it's both. I think they field tested maybe 3 years ago, realized some things were happening to us, didn't really respond to the field testing feedback and just plowed ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are. I have, and again, I'll share in depth in the fall, but if you look at our longevity, you see if they were stock investments, this meeting would be taking place in Hawaii, and it would be amazing, but it's a very abnormal.
Especially for math. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, if a vendor, if we had a relationship with a vendor where I work, or it was a multi-year unanticipated situation like this, and the sole value was in the data, we'd probably be having very strong words. So I will echo what both Scott and Dr. Dolan said. I think that's within our right. I'm right. I mean, the value here is the data and its perceived accuracy. There's not any other value being delivered, right? So therefore, there's no value really being delivered.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, we won't name districts that we've worked with, that there are districts that aren't seeing the same type of growth, even with the change. So it is a unique experience where there are some districts, even with the algorithm adjusting, who aren't seeing, they're seeing growth, but not dramatically abnormal. So we're waiting for the new norms to come out, because the new norms will then regulate everything. Because of the shift that the test made from being truly adaptive, meaning it went from...
It had no top.
It theoretically had no top, to being more closely aligned to a standards grade level based assessment. So when you have something that originally was, I'm in 4th grade and I keep getting questions right, and it keeps going higher and higher and higher and higher, to a test that is more aligned with something that is predetermined, still has the adaptability, still gets harder, but its questions are more in alignment with the grade level strands of, if I'm a 4th grader, it's going to go down a grade, up a grade, maybe up 2 grades, but not at the level that it used to go up, is something we're trying to, you know.
So I mean, I can see the problem with having no top.
Correct.
Because as students grow, their growth might slow down perceptually, but not necessarily just based on how they're answering their questions. So I see they're trying to solve that problem.
Yep.
I don't know how it's working for us.
Yeah, the difficulty with the test going too high was you could never get, especially at a young age, to the complexity of a question that also had the age appropriateness of the topic or whatever it was for a child. Like, they were having difficulty with those components, and so kids were maybe understanding the content, but not understanding the question.
I mean, I don't know that we're going to solve it here.
No, we aren't.
But to be fair, if Doogie Howser was out there, like, it's not an age-appropriate question because there's a maturity that comes with solving advanced physics.
Correct.
Right? So, like, there's a little bit of better conversation to have here in terms of, like, what we're solving for.
Yep.
I guess the only question that we need to ask is, are we getting what we need from the assessment or not? And if we are, then great. But if we're not, then we figure out how do we then go get the information that we need from somebody else.
Yeah, and it strikes me as a bit weird that, I mean, they started a process of change, and that sounds like the right choice to change. I'm not really going to argue that point, but there's known anomalies, there's known issues. I would expect at bare minimum support and understanding, helping us understand our data as we work through and so I'm just not hearing from you that we have a partner on the other side of the table who is helping us clean up a mess that they've made.
We would agree.
Okay. So in other industries, this would be over by now.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, well,
So you have our tacit thoughts here to push back if you want on our contract.
We got your back.
We appreciate that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. Now, this data that Jenny's going to talk about is valid and reliable.
Yes.
Because we did it ourselves, and so I'm going to have Jenny talk about it.
This is our survey data. So we surveyed teachers for just their perception feedback on how things went this year. And so you can see here that teachers had pretty good feelings on most of the implementation, and how we're able to use this data is in guiding us with where they still need support from us, as we move forward into our second year of implementation and support. So what stood out both in the questions here and in the feedback that they had kind of a chance to give some open response to is that teachers still want some support with student growth in mathematical reasoning and retention of skills. So here's just kind of highlights from opportunities for continued support that we can still provide to them and some positive reflections that they had. So I summarized kind of the themes that were written. And teachers shared this information that will also continue to guide our professional development. They would like support around word problems, continued support with small group and centers, and incorporating more hands-on activities and games, reviewing previous content, more support for students who struggle and are in intervention or are EL or special ed students. Things that they appreciated in Go Math were the increase in rigor, the multitude of engaging activities that the resource provides, and that there is plenty of provided skill practice, more than they need is provided to them, and that the lessons are really engaging. So using this information that we got from our survey feedback, we feel like we have a great kind of direction for what we can do to support them next year. And throughout our year, the plan is to still reach out to them and say, what do you feel like you need now? And to give that support to them as we continue to support them with implementation. And now I'm going to hop over to 6-8 for a minute here, get you guys a little information about what they've been up to. So This actually happened in the spring of last school year, but the math leaders in the township brought in a very exciting guest speaker, Peter Liljedahl. He is the mastermind behind the Building Thinking Classrooms framework, which is very exciting to math teachers. Not sure if anyone in here is familiar with him, but math teachers are very excited about him. And a few of them saw him at some conferences or national workshops maybe, but we were very, very excited to bring him as kind of a joint effort in District 225 and then all of the sender schools. We came together and brought him to us and hosted something that was just a full day for our teachers. And so a bunch of our District 34 teachers participated in that learning experience. And that was at the spring of not this previous school year, but the one right before it. And so since then, what our teachers have done is the teachers who attended have been able to implement some of his framework and strategies into their classrooms. And also at our Institute days or just through their collaboration time with their teaching partners and with the rest of the department, they've been able to share what they've learned, and we are still, working on opportunities for teachers who didn't attend to be brought into this just framework. It's a very different. It's a very different approach for teaching math. It's very collaborative, and it's very exciting if you're present in the room with Peter as he guides you through it. And so the next 2 slides, I have these little snippets that just show, this first one is a podcast I found with Peter talking, so it's kind of him explaining what his framework is, and so we'll start with that one. It's really quick.
What a thinking classroom looks like, rather than sitting in desks, students are standing in groups of 3, working at vertical whiteboards on a task. When they complete that task, they will be given another task, and if they get stuck on that task, they'll be given a hint. The students are moving through tremendous amounts of content with lots of conversation, deep understanding. These groups of 3 are not strategically created. The teacher has sat down and carefully decided who's going to work with who. And they're not self-selected groups. These groups are randomly selected. The students are spending the majority of the time in the classroom in this active state, constructing understanding and making meaning with other students who are also building and making meaning. That's what a thinking classroom is.
And I want to add to him over there, but it's also a productive struggle experience. He gives you very little to work off of. He just kind of poses something and says, have at it. And you have to work with your group to really figure out what you're trying to do. And it's exciting and it's fun. And after a teacher sits through being a pretend student of his, they just leave so inspired, I want to do this, I want to do this. But it is kind of difficult to transform, your traditional. He's originally, I think, from Sweden, and I think he does a lot of things in Canada. It's not very, American. So our curriculum doesn't necessarily just drop easily into his framework, but teachers try to adapt and try to work in his framework when they can, because it's a very exciting way to run a math class. But the next slide shows, this is not one of our teachers, I'd have to share that, but I found a video of a different teacher from somewhere else who has her kids just doing one of his activities or using his framework. So I wanted to show it just so you could see what it looks like when his strategies are implemented.
Building thinking classroom routine, students are working in small groups of 3. They have a total of 5 problems. What they're going to be doing is, once a student is going to be holding the marker, that person is the recorder. They're going to be asking their partners how to solve the problem and recording their thinking. After they've worked on that first problem, then they're going to switch. The next person is going to hold the marker and again take on the role of a recorder. So we have our students working collaboratively. They're solving 5 problems. Everybody is working at their own virtual whiteboard and recording their answers.
And kids are encouraged to look around at each other's work. That's why it's vertical. It's meant for people to peer around the classroom and look at what everyone else is doing. And it also can be differentiated, like when you're there with Peter, if you finish one task, he goes up there and he just like on the spot, he just adds to it and has you go a level deeper if that's what your group needs. He gives you a hint if that's what your group needs. And it's really inspiring to just be part of this. So it was very exciting that we had this experience for our teachers to come and be part of that. And I feel like they're still on this just like roller coaster of excitement from when we had him come in here. And they're excited to share it with their colleagues that didn't attend. So that's where we're at with 6-8. And back to you, Matt.
So just to bring our fun map talk up to the final grades, and for what it's worth, and to potentially bring a sense of validity and reliability, 8th graders, this is the springtime for 8th graders, and you can see a shift in the number of children meeting their growth targets. This is a little bit above average. It's not as dramatic as the other grades, but again, strong performance, which attests to the changes we're making in teaching and learning and the curriculum resources and the methodology Jenny just described, and the stability and achievement in something like NWA. We appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments? Again, this is our continuous improvement, just sharing a year out, and we have many years to go here.
I'm pleased to see that since we switched to these new deliverables, that it's actually working. So that's awesome. No matter what NEWA or MAP say, there's some engagement from the teachers that they like the new products. So that's great.
Yeah, off the survey record, there's just so much feedback, I think both of us here, with how pleased people are with the direction we're going in both K-5 6, and 6-8 for math.
Anybody else? Questions?
On the triad piece that we were just, looking at, I was wondering sort of if there was anything shared about, in the classroom handling, kids with sort of different, proclivities. So like as personally a social extrovert, you always led every single group project, that looks great, but I would imagine maybe like a traditional introvert, it could be really intimidating. So I was wondering if there's anything shared, like how to flex to that or work within the classroom setting so that it works for all types of kids.
That's a great question. And I'm that kid too. I probably would have been very nervous as a student being in that setting. And when I participated in Peters, I was very nervous about it too. Luckily, I was in a group that happened to have one of my high school friends in it randomly, which was great because it was totally random. But I found myself being just very quiet. And that was okay. Like, you were allowed to be quiet. That was okay. But the way that I think Peter would answer that is that it's okay to have adaptions to how you have that going on. I guess I don't know exactly how to handle it except to say that I am that person and I experienced it and I went through it and I was okay. I stayed quiet until I felt comfortable. Okay. And when I did feel comfortable, then I spoke up.
I read his book.
Yeah.
And we use it, actually, we used it like as a department at GVS. Physics does it a lot at GVS. And he does cover a lot of that, and he also, but like also how she said they have group roles and they have to rotate those group roles, so that kind of encourages everybody to share. But it is a great way of learning, and it encourages grit and problem solving and collaboration, and it's good.
I think it helps to, I have a daughter who she did a whole speech in high school for speech about her shyness and her being an introvert. I think the opportunity for what we're trying to prepare them for in terms of the workforce, being able to work with others, being able to hear others' voices and then eventually provide their voice is something like my daughter didn't have going through school, so now she's in college, having to find that in a much more rigorous environment. And fortunately, she has the intelligence, baseline intelligence, to be able to work through the anxiety of it. But I think for a lot of kids, especially kids who would struggle in school and are introverts, the younger we're able to start something like this, the more prepared or the better prepared they would be for environments in the future where they may also feel uncomfortable, but now they have something behind them. I think, having read just a little bit of this stuff, that's part of the grit, the getting. I wasn't a great student. I would have been shy, not because I didn't want to participate, because I didn't know the answer. I mean, it would have been purely that, and we'll have that as well. My daughter would know the answer and still wouldn't share until we start to give her. And so if you start it, the younger you start it, the more you teach them the skills. It's all the collaborative communication skills that we're trying to build that are hard in general. They're really hard when you do isolated work. And so hopefully this can engage, and if GBS is doing something similar in their departments, hopefully our kids can develop those skills that when they come to you, you see less of the students who are shy. You're still going to have them. You're always going to have some kids that are shy.
Math discourse is a really big theme in Go Math as well. It's really just a lot of, there's a lot of embedded questions where kids are encouraged to have conversations with each other in small groups, or even, written just responses to questions to get their conversations about math flowing. So hopefully that too can help just develop this comfort that maybe wasn't there back in the day when we were all growing up.
Way back when.
Way back for you.
Seems like the small groups is helpful as well, because it's not like you're getting, picked on the whole class, like the teacher's looking right at you and you don't know the answer. You can build your confidence in a small group a lot easier than in a big group setting, I think. So I like that it's like a group of 3. Helps build confidence, I would think.
All right, one last quick question. So is that professional development for this year? Are we going to start to do small pilot programs at certain grade levels next year? How are we envisioning taking this and testing the efficacy in the 6-8?
The Peter thing?
Yeah.
Well, there's really no plan to push that as a framework that we would require. It was something that, like I said before, that the township came together to bring Peter in. And I think it really started with our GBS and GBN math chairs kind of having this idea and wanting to have kind of a similar experience provided at all the sender schools. And together we were all like, Peter, let's bring in Peter. And so it was kind of hey, however far we can go with this, let's do it. And so it's more of, as the opportunity arises, we're sharing it out. But it is, and maybe Jessica, because you say you do it often in physics, I know it's happening a lot at GBS and math too. But it's not very easy to just kind of take a math lesson and drop in Peter's framework onto it. It does take a bit of planning, and I think for teachers to take on that approach, they just need that time to prepare it, and also they want to be ready. They need to be ready to want to do it. So as they feel ready and want to take that on, I am right here to support them. But with the current implementation of big ideas and with how our teachers loop sometimes or just change what they're teaching, some of them are still teaching the new grade level or courses for the first time and may not be ready to take on more at this time. So we're kind of leaving it up to them. I've got a bunch of his books ready to hand out. I'm ready to provide them with PD, and I know we've got a few of our teachers who've become leaders in this too that are ready to also provide.
This is kind of one of those things, if we're going to be augmenting or expanding kind of teaching style and capacity, depending on the setting, it always helps to have champions. So if somebody's like, hey, I can be the person from a peer-to-peer standpoint, would highly recommend that, and would be curious to hear of any success stories that we have over this next couple of years.
Yeah, well, we do have some that are doing it a lot. Maybe I can ask them to come in and speak.
Or at least make sure everybody else in their cohort knows what they're doing and what works for
Yeah.
them, because it's very much a style thing as much as anything.
Yeah.
We can talk about some of those memorable teaching moments that you had as a student.
Mhm.
This could be one of them in the right setting and not forced, but where it's really natural. So I think it's an awesome way to start thinking about how to teach differently. Not to say that it has to be how you do it, but when the opportunity presents itself and it matches the personality of the students and the teacher, then it becomes a really kind of a magical experience. So to that, I mean, I think, well done.
Thanks for
Thank
keep
you.
pushing.
All right, will do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
Exciting good news.
Yay.
All good. Next, we'll move along to our strategic plan update. Becca.
Well, can I just say one thing first? Yeah, so we're on to the fourth presentation of the evening, so thanks for your patience. We're gonna, we've taken a little bit of a different approach to our strategic plan. You know that, right? We've tried to sort of narrow the scope, make it more intuitive. We've created a dashboard. Becca is going to be our primary narration voice as we work through this, and then others can answer questions or chime in appropriately. The one thing I'm always mindful of and want to remind you of is that I think any good strategic plan is dynamic rather than static. I mean, these are malleable plans. We respond to what we see and what we hear, and make those adaptations accordingly. So this should never be viewed as some sort of hardcore linear process. It ebbs and flows, it changes. You'll see some of these goals maybe have been fully met, others are going to carry over into the next year, may have taken on a different focus based on real-time information. So I would just ask that you keep that in mind as we move through here. Becca?
Great, thank you for that. So as mentioned, tonight we're going to present the strategic plan dashboard that you'll see behind you, which can be found on our website under D34, or about D34. The dashboard showcases the status of each of the tactics that we presented at our board meeting in February. And so everything we're going to present tonight is a high-level overview of the work done this year, highlighting a few initiatives, and then some of the plans for the 25-26 school year. And so just to start off real quick, a couple of the colors, just so that you have the understanding. Green is something that's completed, yellow is something that's in progress, blue is something that is ongoing, and then red is something that is a future initiative. So our first goal is belonging and well-being, and under our first objective, it is each school year, students will experience an increase in feelings of safety and belonging. So one of the things we wanted to highlight was the most recent administration of the Panorama Social Emotional Learning Survey revealed that in our grades 3 through 5, 90% of students reported that they had a teacher or adult in their school that they could count on, which we were excited about. Additionally, we had Dr. Mai Agmar, I hope I'm saying that correctly, a renowned Mongolian language specialist in the Library of Congress, returned to District 34 to lead a professional learning session for certified staff and associates to learn about Mongolian language fundamentals, pronunciation strategies, cultural nuances, and effective classroom support for bicultural students. For our second objective, each school year, families will report an increase in sense of belonging as a member of the District 34 community. We hosted 4 equity and inclusion sessions for our parent leaders, which included our PTA council as well as the leaders of our BPAC organizations. And we reviewed ways to ensure that all students and families felt included in our school activities. We also have a team which is reevaluating our current mental health matters model in hopes to increase attendance for next year. And as a reminder, the Mental Health Matters program is a series of educational opportunities for our families. So this past year we had different topics such as partnering with the police department to focus on some technology safety guidelines for students. We also had some outside resources come in and they discuss puberty and different fun topics like that for our parents. So this year, we evaluated the families through our family newsletter to ask them kind of their feedback in hopes of increasing some of our attendance in future programs. For Objective 3, which was each school year, District 34 will increase the number of candidates, teachers hired, and total staff members from underrepresented demographics. We completed our current demographic profiles for all position groups. The affinity group leadership was expanded and a transition plan was established. And our equity ambassador role continued in year 2 with participation in building-based interviews. Our second goal is creativity and innovation. And actually, before I move to the second goal, was there any questions? Because I know I'm kind of sharing a lot of information as we go through here. Were there any questions for the first goal?
I have an overall question.
Yes.
I love this dashboard. It's great. I have a question around, do these milestones correlate to implementation goals that then like roll up to the large vision goals?
Yeah, so we kind of are just tracking in each trimester where our status is. And as you'll see, some of them continue to be blue because, and especially with some of our tactics that we have coming up, they're things that we continue to do each year. So we may have accomplished, I'm going to use kind of our teaching and learning department as an example. Some of our tactics are to review the data that students take on a test, and we do that annually. So you might see that it continues to be blue just because there's not really a completion of the project. Other projects, such as establish a current demographic profile, we have completed, and so then we'll use that data for kind of the subsequent tactics that we have. Yeah. All right, so the second goal is creativity and innovation, with the first objective of students in all student groups will show an increase in growth and achievement on available assessments. So as we saw in the presentation this evening, professional development with the new math resource has a focus on starting classes with a whole group, standards-based mini lesson, and then small group differentiated center support with inclusive instructional scaffolding. We also had each of our intermediate and middle schools engaged in the NWEA process through school improvement plans, MTSS meetings, and specifically student success meetings. Additionally, our primary buildings engaged in the Ames Web process through school improvement plans, MTSS meetings, and student success meetings. In Objective 2, all students will exhibit an increase in their display of identified dispositions, and we have innovative staff professional development topics scheduled for February and April of the coming school year. Objective 3, students will demonstrate increased engagement in learning. As you heard earlier this evening, in the first year, 92 8th grade students earned their Pathways to Biliteracy Award, recognizing their dedication to multilingualism. And then we also had student success meetings held regularly to discuss student supports as components of the MTSS process. At a statewide event with over 1,100 participants, our BPACs hosted 3 sessions for preschool through 8th grade parents. And as part of Objective 4, staff will have an increased opportunities for professional learning to support innovative and culturally responsive practices and interdisciplinary instruction. So we have a late arrival calendar for professional development with tracks and identifies professional development continually throughout the year. And then we utilize data from our annual staff survey to plan for each year ahead. And our third and final goal is collaboration and community. So the first objective, District 34, will increase community and organizational partnerships to support targeted areas. We partnered with the PTA Council to share input on concepts such as school supplies, which we've updated for the 25-26 school year. We had many events, so I'm going to list a few of them here because they were very exciting. The Title I Literacy and Mathematics Night brought in hundreds of families to Westbrook and Hoffman, where families engaged in hands-on learning to build fluency in numeracy and literacy. We had new GEF-sponsored STEM nights, which were offered for all elementary students, and each had a fantastic turnout. And the Glen Grove Community Project coordinated 3 family events. Each event celebrated the cultural beauty within our schools and district through fun activities and performances. We also completed 16 sessions of our Educator Wellness Program in partnership with the Family Service Center through a grant from the Coleman Foundation. And in Objective 2, District 34 will increase programs, partnerships, and activities between schools and family groups. Our Spanish BPACs hosted parent workshops to help families learn how to navigate resources on their child's iPads and how to stay connected with District 34 through emails, Schoology, Seesaw, PowerSchool, and newsletters. In Objective 3, families in the community will report an increase in engagement in District 34. To effectively communicate with families in their preferred languages, staff leveraged the auto translation features in tools like Canva, Smore, and Google Workplace. And we also have our new communication platform, Parent Square, which offers automatic translation for emails and text messages, as well as a 2-way communication platform, which works similarly to Talking Points. And with that, I'll leave it open for any questions.
So, thank you, Becca. Let me just say quickly, Becca started really with a conceptual framework here and then really developed this, and, we worked as a cabinet team to try to really bring to life the work so that not only you as a board, but community members could go actually on here and see more of the granular work that's being done. That was in response, really not just to best practice, but, the board had a particular interest in making sure that this is well seen, and I think rightly so, because we're very proud of the work. And just remember, too, we have 800 people who work here, Kevin. So there's a lot of help and support that goes into actualizing these things that sometimes get lost, when we're doing a presentation like this. So I just need to say that, too.
I appreciate that, because we do have kind of departments responsible, but that doesn't mean those are the only people who are working on each of these objectives.
If I may?
Yes.
It's a fantastic start to reinforce and codify and show in a not so simple visual all the good things that everybody's doing and how it all moves in a direction that is very specific and explicit. And that was the intention of the strategic plan, and even some of the things that Alex and I had offered and shared with Dane on, how do we track the progress, right? One thing, red is always gets everybody kind of upset or kind of awkward, so might suggest maybe picking a empty circle or
Sure.
something else, just, it gives everybody inspiration that we're not ignoring it. We just haven't started it yet.
Yes.
But then the other thing, I think there's some opportunities here where we do have let's just say a 5 essentials feedback or something like that, where instead of looking at the arrow, put in, what was it was a plus 5%, or put in a number. So if we can bring in some aspects of semi-quantitative, trend-based over the last time we did it, especially if we're going to be tracking, terms and intervals, it becomes very helpful to say, okay, we're making progress where we are tracking numbers, and then we're also moving initiatives and engagement efforts forward, so you can see how they are potentially linked together. Again, awesome first pass at it. It's a fantastic start, and I'm excited to see how and where this can continue to communicate information in a way that the community and, frankly, everybody will be able to see and say, oh, now I know why that's there, and it's making an impact here, and it's all because of that. Got it.
Has there been any community feedback about this dashboard at all?
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
Red circles.
Purple?
They're ovals, James. Well, I will say that I do have to keep going back to what the colors mean. I do. That's just me. I can't keep remembering completed in progress. That's just me. But otherwise, it's fantastic that we have a dashboard, because I love KPIs. This is good.
Yeah, so we can take a look at it and see if there's a different way to display, or if there's a way that we can kind of get the words in there a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to offer suggestions for that.
Just criticisms.
That's right. I mean, a second tab, I don't know. But great, thank you so much for the presentation. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or things they want to talk about? All right, let's move along. Do we have any audience comments?
We do not.
Okay. They could be on TV. Oh, right, yes. Next, we have our report section. We have the number 1 FOIA report, the number 2 referendum expense report, the number 3 construction change order report, the number 4 current financial projections, and number 5 monthly budget report. Any comments on the reports?
FOIA report remains amusing.
Yes.
I meant to send an email, and I apologize. I'm usually better at this, but Eric, can I ask you one question about the monthly summary? We've got 5.7 in favorable impact. How does that go back to the table on the page before? Because we got 4.7 there.
So you're talking about the current projection?
Yeah.
Financial projections?
The current financial projections show that we've got at least,
5.676.
Yeah.
Favorable.
But on the prior table, how does it link back to the all funds in the annual budget? Because we've got 4.7 there. Or it doesn't, because usually sometimes it kind of lines up a little bit better for me to, and maybe I'm just telling myself a story with the numbers.
You talk about the monthly budget report afterwards?
Correct. So
Okay.
the monthly
budget report
shows that benefit of 5.7 million favorable. But on the prior page, when we look at the annual budget and the annual either surplus or deficit, so is it that the 5.7 on the monthly actually yields where we were behind $1 million, so it's a $4.7 million benefit, or are they just not related?
You said on the first page, it says surplus deficit, all funds.
4.7.
All funds, 4.7.
But wasn't that just what was on the paper in September last year? So that's not actuals.
That's our question. Is that from September of '24?
On the current financial projections, on the top,
The yellow highlighted column.
yeah, that's what was adopted by the board October 16th.
And now it says 5.7. I'm below. So is it $1 million favorable compared to the budget? Or is it 5.7 favorable?
So the current, I would say for the most part, the chart, the next page is operating funds.
Okay.
Not to be confused with all funds.
There we go.
Oh.
Thank you. That's really what we're trying to get at.
Thank you.
Well, no, but page 2 says all funds.
Page 2.
I'm in the current year financial.
Which report?
Oh, it says total revenue all funds, total expenditures all funds.
Yeah, so that'd be.
That's not necessarily operating.
It says all funds, but
Yeah.
it happens to be that
It says all funds, but it doesn't mean all funds. If we weren't
for the
splitting
most
hairs.
part, yes.
So.
That's primarily what I focus on when I'm speaking to you and the community. Are we up or we're down? You tend to already have a perspective on what we're doing with construction, and it's almost like a separate conversation when it comes to those other funds that we don't include in the operating funds, if that makes sense. So, I'm really tracking our operational changes throughout the year. That's what you're saying, yeah. So it says all funds, but for all intents and purposes,
It's mostly operational.
I'm not really commenting here on, we're talking about debt service, life safety, and construction, which I've already kind of alluded to how I think we're going to end and what's happening there. So this is just so you have an idea. Eric recommended removing $5 million from current year budget to take care of expenses. I want you to see here that we actually do intend on ending better than that, so you have the flexibility.
All in all, we're trending very favorable.
Yeah, and this is a little
Good work then.
Thank you.
Does that answer?
Yeah, no,
Get to- Okay.
I was looking at it and I was like, all right, I'm missing something, so thank you. And I forgot to send you a note.
Next, we have K, other business. Dr. Deli, I do want to bring up, there was a pretty extensive True North board meeting last week that we both attended. It did last 4.5 hours, and from what's been going on, we've talked about it's a really dynamic situation. We've gone from possibly 2 school districts leaving to, the statement there was all school districts are exploring leaving True North. They're also attempting to amend the Articles of Incorporation, which will occur on June 30th, because there's enough school districts that will vote for it, to change the calculation about, we had to pay an outside consultant to talk about our special education program. Now they're amending it so that you don't have to hire an outside consultation person, and you don't have to reimburse or use True North staff to come up with your comprehensive plan. Along those lines, we talked to our attorney and we amended the amendment to include any charges prior to 2025 that True North might come up with, because that reflects us. But we made a pretty big discussion point about how it's interesting how in 4 months we've gone from 4 school districts saying that they don't want District 34 to leave True North to everyone wants to leave True North. And I made the push that possibly when 25% of their operating funds for their fixed costs were leaving, everyone got a little worried. And then we also talked about how our school district spends the least amount per student and how the resources are there for them to start their own special education programming. And going forward, there was another thing that was voted on to talk about the actual orderly dissolution of True North. And that's in progress right now and has actually been voted on, and the board voted, I believe, 17-1 to, there was 1 no. Which was interesting because it was a school district that was asking for an orderly dissolution. But going forward, this True North thing is going to be very interesting as our last year in True North. If there's any questions, anybody want to talk about it, I'm happy to elaborate. These meetings are getting longer and longer. You're welcome.
Well, and it's a good foreshadowing for actions that will come before this board from other school districts for your consideration and for their withdrawal. So there are more and more districts now that are making their proclamations at their board meetings and then to be sent forward to the member districts to vote on. So you're going to start to see an increased frequency in those votes on our board meetings.
And it's also interesting, a lot of the documents we'll be getting aren't necessarily what we sent, because they're not necessarily following the True North Articles of Incorporation, but more so like 225 is attempting the Illinois School Code, which is a different lower bar. And I personally, I'm not happy that 4 school districts told us that we couldn't leave, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to tell them the same thing. Those 4 school districts.
Thanks for the update. So just to clarify, there will not be an independent assessment, or there will be, or they can
They have to do an
their own?
assessment, but they could do it on their own with their own in-house staff, not hire someone, and they don't even have to ask True North for help.
I'm just going to make a comment now that I anticipate large language models being applied for the generation of these
They may have already been
documents.
completed.
And it would probably behoove us to have some level of validation of any claims put forward before this board and/or the district in terms of services delivered, because I would hate for us to be on record validating or supporting somebody's withdrawal if they don't have the appropriate services behind it. So.
Certainly. I do want to be mindful of the districts that allowed us to or said that it would be okay for us to leave.
Yeah, but those comments and that support came because we had put the investment behind it.
We proved it, yeah.
We proved it,
Right.
yes.
And-
Well,
and
they're
that's my
lowering the
point.
bar, so proving it has now become
That's my
easier.
point.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't support them ultimately getting there, it's them being there when we say, we support you too.
Yeah, and then there was a large discussion about what an orderly dissolution process could look like, and I will mention that I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of attorneys involved from multiple law firms. Mm-hmm.
I mean, wouldn't it be possible that the orderly dissolution would supersede individual departures if it actually moved forward? And
It's possible. There's,
It will be interesting to see which path is shorter.
yeah.
Once you get so many attorneys involved, what happens with all the funds that are going back /
well, I'm not sure who they're going to be billing. Are they billing the individual districts, or are they billing?
Well, I know who True North will be billing.
Right.
Will be the member districts, of
district.
which we're still a member for 1 year.
One more year. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and there's also, there's also 2 members that left True North in the last 20-plus years, and they actually get a piece of the assets of a dissolved True North also. So there's a lot of calculations to be made. There's a lot of people's decision on what they need to do, and there are some school districts that really need to find a way to service their students that might not involve True North, and they're still looking into that too.
And on that point, I would say, we are represented by a law firm, and we have a meeting scheduled next.
18th?
Yeah, coming up, to discuss some of the particulars of these matters. Attorney bills are actually one of the things we're going to talk about.
So, yeah, we'll try and keep you up to date on what's going on. We don't have a meeting in July, but True North might. They are moving at breakneck speed to figure out where they want to be. And like I said before, and I said at this meeting, a board of 18 members is really kind of dysfunctional. I mean, it's really hard to get everyone on the same page on what we want to do going forward. But it's working that way. And we'll talk about that. If there's no other business, I'd say we're adjourned. Thanks.